Ani, Bojo, Kwekwe, Tanzi, Scano. Greetings, it's Catherine and Brian at Moonstarlodge in South Central Ontario, bringing you our Indigenous First Nations perspective on all things cartomancy and shamanism. And I'm here today with a special video. So this is separate from the weekly readings that we do. And I want to talk about something very special that's come my way through Schiffer, Red Feather, Mind, Body, Spirit, and it's the Awakening Tarot by Monica Badirsky. So this particular video today is specifically about this deck. And I always want to do right by somebody who is important in the tarot community and to do justice. So this will be an unboxing video focusing on what one would receive and the layout of the cards and so on. For those of you who don't know us, I have been running this Indigenous Lodge since 1983 with my husband, Brian, and we focus on Indigenous arts, spirituality, and education. And so we bring spiritual realities out into the community and work in schools, do public events, work with different ministries, provincial ministries, and have had quite a long career in the cartomancy, divination, shamanism world, bringing back the restorative aspects of our Indigenous culture as best we can. This is one of the things that endears me to teachers and gifted artists like Monica, and I will get to that. I have collected formally tarot, mostly tarot and oracle decks since 1974, so that's 50 years. Don't add up the numbers or you'll know how old I am. Anyway, this tarot was a big deal when I was in university doing psychology and parapsychology for 7 years because, of course, Carl Jung was raised as a spiritualist, and the concept of archetypes was very much analyzed by him and Joseph Campbell and people of that ilk in the time when I was in university. So this became part of my study set, and then as I have amassed very important to me tarot decks, I've now got a collection that exceeds 1,600 decks in this 50 years. Now I have resource materials, and some of these decks are oracles. But basically my focus has been on finding decks which represent different cultures, personal growth and transformation, the elements, Indigenous culture, and so forth. So this particular deck, the Awakening Tarot, is very much part of the ethos around how I gather tarot and what I do in my private practice with others and what I do in my public practice as a teacher. So Brian, could you flip the camera for a moment? And I want to show you, these are the other Monica Badirsky decks that I have. I started following Monica's YouTube channel a few years back. Please ignore the dog dancing here we have a three-legged little dog, and she hops so her bells jingle. Anyway, it started for me with the Shadowland Tarot and the House of Shadow Lenormand, because I also have Lenormand and Kipper and other forms of cartomancy in my collection. So I started with editions 3, 4, and 5 of the House of Shadows, and then the Bat's Blood Ink deck, which was a compilation of some of the extra cards that are in this Lenormand. And I believe it's all of the extra cards. Now I'm missing 1 and 2 because I didn't know Monica at this point. Then this came out in the last couple of years, the House of Shadows Samhain edition. But with the Shadowland Tarot, I always love this Between the Worlds, bone casting, charm casting, divination, which is different. It's a different form of divination. There's the larger Schiffer publication of the Shadowland Lenormand, and now we have this brand new Awakening Tarot. So I'm going to move these other decks and start to talk a little bit about the Awakening Tarot. Can I ask my off-camera assistant here to move my basket? Oh, thank you, honey. All right. So let's talk about the Awakening Tarot. So in this classy kind of presentation here, we've got the magnetic box. We have this particular phrase here on the inside. It's commonly assumed that tarot is exclusively a divinatory tool, and this was its original purpose. However, this is not the case, by Judica Isles. So we have this book, which I'm going to get into in a moment. We have the tarot itself in a box, tuck style box, and with my rheumatoid arthritis it takes me a moment to get the cards out. Alright, so I'm going to set these to the side. I think we don't have to have a demonstration of tapping on the box or anything like that. So let me just sit the cards here because I really want to get into the book. This book is in a similar vein to the book which accompanies the original tarot. It's a chunky book. This is a big book, and it's not just fluff, and it's not just a whole lot of blank pages and space to write notes on. Of course, we have the original legal stuff, and we have some endorsements here by other writers who are tarot specialists. The acknowledgments. And one of the things that endears me is in the original first paragraph here. I acknowledge and recognize the original stewards of this territory, the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. Sorry, I have to take the glasses off to read this. Treaty 13 of 1805. The Three Fires Confederacy, the Odawa, Potawatomi, and Anishinaabe, the Seneca, Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Métis, the Wendat Nations, Inuit, and Nehiyawak Cree people, all of whom have lived and traveled these shores, rivers, and lands in and around Toronto. Over millennia, Indigenous people have traded and held council on the shores of what some call Lake Ontario, and I recognize and honor the stories of this land, along with its original people, respectfully and with gratitude. Anybody who starts out a book of this magnitude with that respect touches the heart of this Anishinaabe woman. Anyway, she goes on to continue her acknowledgments. There are contents. In the contents, you'll see the minor arcana discussed, so the element of earth, air, fire, and water. In a regular RWS deck, of which this is that format, Rider-Waite-Smith, earth is pentacles, air is swords, fire are wands, and water is cups. Then there's the major arcana. And finally, after the cards are discussed, we have living a magical and awakened life, elemental spreads, an FAQ, conclusion and gratitude, and notes, as well as contact information. So one of the things that the concept of awakening engenders, you can flip the camera, Brian. Awakening requires us, in terms of our growth, to recognize our shadows and to recognize perhaps some foibles or some things that we need to address in our growth. For some people, awakening happens in a spontaneous way. It could be in the middle of yoga. It could be on a mountain peak, having an extraordinary state of rapture. If you look at the 17 levels of consciousness that Hawkins describes and that we teach in our courses on shamanism, the upper 8 or 9 levels of consciousness take us to that place of awakening. I hear some people call it being woke, and that's another way of saying it. It starts out with understanding, though, the Jungian concepts of archetype and how we all have all the facets of the archetypes within us. It's the ones that challenge us that bring shadow. And so one of the ways Indigenous people look at staying connected with culture and source, the dynamic energies that relate us all to our origins, is to stay connected with the elements. And very much this deck is about the awakening through connection with the 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. So Monica has taken this, it's a very different deck, if I can say that, to her original deck. The other deck softens and engages us with the archetypes and the shadows a little differently than this deck does. Her art in this deck is based on little porcelain dolls. And these dolls were collected out of a dump site from a German porcelain or pottery type factory. And these were the broken bits that weren't going to make it into the production line to be turned into dolls. So they're missing bits. There are no racial attributes. The predominantly brown sepia type tones homogenize the characters in this deck, and we'll be looking at the cards in a moment. And it's interesting because the broken dolls have a beauty in their own right. It reminds me of the tradition in Japan of taking broken pottery and filling the cracks with gold to make it even more beautiful than when it was formed and make it useful again. These dolls have a beauty. Gender is treated as non-binary, Monica indicates in her notes in the beginning chapters here that there is no gender specific to any one of the cards, even though it might look like there's a gender. We aren't expected to put any particular gender background on it. So that's helpful when dealing with shadow. And if you just take a moment, Brian, we're going to be flipping back and forth between me and the cards, but I think maybe we'll go to the cards now. So this picture here, I'm just trying to make sure I'm in the frame properly. This picture is from the book, and it's showing some of the broken dolls that were used as models for the cards. And now I got to put the glasses back on to see this. Monica has been careful to show how to use the cards and to give you cross references here between the original Rider-Waite-Smith names and the names that she has ascribed to these more updated figures. So the Fool in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck becomes the Seeker. The Magician is Manifestation. The High Priestess is the Sage. The Empress is Abundance, and so on. And she gives how to follow the guide, describing the elements and and there are exercises for this. So then we get into the descriptions here. The One of Earth, which would be the Ace of Pentacles in a standard Rider-Waite-Smith, describing the image, describing the general keywords, the message of the card, the upright advice, the reversed card advice, the shadow aspect, and the reflection questions. So each one of the cards has this amount of analysis with it. So let me take a moment and knowing that the bulk of the book are these card descriptions and analyses, I'll just finish with the book here before we get into the cards. Let me get to the very end. So on page 243, we have Living a Magical and Awakened Life. So there's some strategies and prescriptions here for doing that. Creating a travel kit. Local travel kit contents, dealing with ancestors, deities, other spirits, fate and empowerment, or writing your own life story, shadow work journal, and so on. And then toward the back here, there are some astrological aspects and so on, and some card spreads. So by the time we get to the end of the book, it's like nearly 300 pages. So let me put that to the side. Now these are out of order because in the way I like to analyze a deck is to use it. So here's the Visionary of Earth. This is a beautiful card. You can see there are stones. You can see that the other leg is created with grasses. There's what looks like corn to me. Perhaps that's a mushroom cap. But let me just start flipping through here. So we have the 8 of Water. If you're familiar with the Eight of Cups in RWS, the person has picked up their stuff and they're walking away, giving up something that they've loved. They're on some kind of a spiritual quest. We have the Seeker. There's the Fool card. We have Manifestation. That's the card that represents the Magician. So you can see that the elements are here. This is the whole point of this deck, are the elemental associations. And I know in our traditional culture, we need to, as I've said earlier, integrate earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. And we do this by respecting the land, by recognizing that, for example, water, and the French word for water is mer. It's also the same word for mother. Recognizing that fire is the great transmuter and the cleanser. Without fire, pine cones don't open up to let out their seeds. And earth, of course, we live on this earth, and if we poison the earth, we poison ourselves. But the fifth element of spirit is extremely important here too, because in order to give in spiritus, or the spirit, into all of these elements, we have to have our connection with the divine, however we see that. In terms of pantheism or panentheism, and I won't get off on that, but recognizing what we call the great mystery in my culture, or the creator, Wakan Tonka. But the great mystery is the one I like the best, the field of all possibilities. So what we give out into the universe, we get back again. Here is what would be the death card. It's called Release. The Sage for the High Priestess. Abundance for the Empress. The Green Being for the Emperor. The Moon is cycles. The Initiate of water is the Page of water. The Voyager of water would be the same as the Knight. Here is Fortitude, which would be strength. I'm going to come back to this card in a minute. Here is the Six of Fire, which is the same as the Six of Wands. Accolades. The Artist of Fire is the same as the Queen of Wands. The Visionary of Fire is the King of Wands. The Lovers is renamed Intimacy. Integrity, which is on the cover of the book, is Justice. Perspective is the Hanged One. Well-being is the Sun. The Two of Air is the same as the Two of Swords. Awakening is Judgment. I think that I will leave it there. By the way, Servitude is the Devil. I said I would come back to that. So I've been using these cards now for just about 10 days. And I'll just lay out some of the other ones here very quickly so you can see some of them. I don't want to overwhelm with the visuals because each card needs time to just sit in assessment. But you can see that most of the time gender is not shown in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes we put our own judgments or assessments here. This is a lovely card. Three of Air. It's a different representation. It would be the same as the Three of Swords, but it doesn't have the bloodiness of the swords. Here's the Seven of Air. So I think that gives you an idea of where we're going here with this reading. Very much a sense. Maybe I'll just leave them here. You can flip the camera. I said in my reel in advance of this unboxing that I don't do unboxings very often because there's usually a plethora of unboxings that people can access on YouTube and other platforms, podcasts and Instagram and Facebook and all of those portals. This struck me very deeply. This is the kind of deck I would have liked to have seen in university in the 70s and 80s. It's the kind of deck I would have liked to see after university when I went through all the training to become a spiritualist minister and was licensed as a spiritualist minister. It is the kind of deck I would have liked to have been able to use going north to work in shamanism in our northern communities here to help people recognize where their wounds are and where their shadows are. The clarity within this deck is indicative of the clarity that Monica Badirsky has gained and as a teacher of others is able to express through her art and her knowledge. If you are struggling with issues and bring this deck into your collection, it might be the deck that you never use with anybody else. It's only for your personal transformation. But I can't give enough credit to Monica for this this gift. The simplicity belies just how deep this deck is. And, you know, the renaming might throw people off, renaming the major arcana, but don't let that. The deep dive is very well explained in the beginning sections of the book. So it just means for perhaps a while lining up an RWS major arcana to see how they correlate. It's worth the effort. It's for a mass market deck. It's quite incredible. The quality, the integrity, and the ability. A person could spend a year just with this deck, evolving, healing, transforming, getting to the place where they are experiencing their own awakening. What price is there on peace, you know? What price is there on that sense of being connected with Source and living a full and completely entrenched life that's grounded and full of capital G grace? Anyway, before I'm accused of sermonizing here, I will leave it at that. And in the weeks to come, let you know that I will be using this deck with some of the other decks of Monica's that I showed before. Now, some of the ones were limited editions, and I believe most of them are now all sold out. But the mass market ones, like the Shadowland Lenormand and the Shadowland Tarot, those are still available. And the Between the Worlds, I believe, is still available. So by all means, that's quite enough right there if you want to have a collection of like-minded decks to integrate and work with in this, time of personal transformation. I'm not sponsored to do this. Monica and I aren't bosom buddies or anything. I'm not doing this for any other reason except that I feel that it's helpful to people in a way that most decks out there, or many decks anyway, cannot. So if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and we really could use your coffee support there. I always need coffee to do these videos. And reach out, leave a comment with this video, and I always answer all your comments. So, miigwech, thank you, nyawe, aho, peace.